everyone, I'm Allie with Potomac Beads. Join me in this Bermuda bracelet video doing some right angle weave, kind of in a triangle section as well as netting. If you need any materials, remember in the description of the video, we'll put links that you can shop there with us. Go ahead and get out all your materials and let's get started. So to start this Bermuda design, we are going to be making a series of triangles. Whether or not you want to do it in all one color or do some gemstoned toned mixes, you're going to need some 6mm pearls, 15 seed beads, and 2mm bicones. Now you could also do this with round beads as well, so if you have 2mm rounds, those will also work. If you want a full-on pearl look or want to change it up, you can also use 8 seed beads for this. So I have a stop bead on my thread along with a size 12 beading needle. I'm going to begin by making a triangle with my pearls. 15 pearl, 15 pearl, 15 pearl. And once you have that set of 3 on there, you're going to let it drop down next to your stop bead or your starter thread. From here, and I'm going to make my tail a little bit longer so that way I can put my clasp on. From here, I'm going to go back through those pearls to make it into a loop. Going back through the 15 pearl, 15 and coming out through my second pearl. Now you're going to notice a lot of thread showing, and I'm using the 0.006 white dragon thread. You won't see the thread once we go in and continue with the design. You really won't. You can see how kind of tight knit it is. From here, we're going to go through and we're going to make loops that go around the pearls. The first loops that we are going to begin with are going to start with 2 of my 15 seed beads, followed by 3 crystals, followed by 2 seed beads. I'm going to go back into that same pearl that my thread is currently coming out of and add that in. From here, I'm going to go through the next 15 and pearl and repeat the same thing. Everything that we do in this design, we are going to repeat 3 times. It's a very repetitive design once you get going. Coming out that pearl there, I'm going to go into the other side after adding my 2 15s, 3 crystals, 2 15s. Once again then, on to the next. Through the 15, through the pearl, and then repeat. From here then, we are going to repeat around the pearls one more time, this time changing up the number and the count of our beads. So from here, I'm going to go back through the next 15, back through that first pearl that I started out with. We're going to switch up the design now, and we're going to use 4 seed beads and 1 pearl, followed by 4 seed beads. Coming out of that pearl, you're going to go into the opposite side, once again circling up. You want to make sure that that group of 4 seed beads and the single 2mm stay to the front or the top of that group of 3. Once again, go over to the next pearl, sew through, add in your 4 seed beads, 1 crystal, 4 seed beads, and do that for the next 2 pearls so you have that double layer of your seed bead and crystal collection. After you have your last loop in here, what you are going to do is sew up through that loop. First, I'm going to go through the next 15 in pearl just to lock it in place a little bit more after finishing with that last grouping of seed beads. And I'm going to sew up to the top of that crystal, so through those first 4 seed beads. What we're going to do now is anchor the 4 seed beads together so they sit right next to one another. To do so, I'm coming out of the top of those 4 seed beads. I'm going to go to my next pearl and go down that grouping of 4 seed beads from the next one. So see, I'm coming out the top there, going down through the next 4. See how that creates that little triangle? We're going to enhance that triangle by adding in 1 of our 2mm crystals and then sewing again back up through those original 4. It's almost like a square stitch with a bead added. Give a nice little tight pull, and then we're going to do it to the next side. Sew through the crystal that lies next to those 4 seed beads. Go over to this side here. I'm going to sew down through this 4 seed beads. If you know right angle weave, you're going to realize that each side we're going to start at a different top or bottom. From here, I add my 2mm crystal, and I'm going to sew once again back up through those 4 beads. Now this still is not linked, so I need to once again sew down through my 4 seed beads, reinforce through the crystal, and then back up again through those 4 seed beads. And now that's all linked together. From here, sew through the next crystal, and down through those 4 seed beads if you want while you're there. Make sure you're not going through that stop bead. Coming out the bottom, once again, add that crystal, and sew back up through those 4 beads. From here again, we need to connect those 2 lines of our seed beads. So we're going to sew down through those 4. Sew through that crystal, and sew up through the seed beads. Once I'm up through the seed beads, it's time for me to connect all of these 2mm crystals in the center. Now I'm going to be adding a 15-0 between them, but you don't have to if you don't want that 15-0 look. I'm going to go through my first bicone, then I'm going to add my 15, sew through my next bicone. Add my 15, sew through my next bicone. So you're connecting this trilogy basically of bicones. Once you're back through that original one, we're going to bring our thread and needle down to the end of our little clover design here, our little triangle. Down through those 4 seed beads that lay after that crystal. And now we have a super easy job. We're going to sew around the whole exterior perimeter, catching on to the 2mm bead, and then sewing up through the 2 15s to the corner 3 beads. Once I come out bead number 1, I'm going to add a 15-0 seed bead, and then sew through the next crystal. Add a 15-0 seed bead, sew through the next pointed crystal. At the same time, if my thread allows it and my needle allows it, I'll sew straight down the line here, making sure I'm going through the 2 15s, catching that center crystal that we added, and then 2 15s. Coming out after that corner crystal, you can see to add those 15s in. Once those get added in, then in between those sets of 3 crystals, I sew right over again to that 3rd corner. So remember when I said that everything we do, we're doing 3 times? Literally, everything we do. It's the Bermuda Triangle. We're never escaping. We're doing 3 times. All right, once we're through there, we still have to connect that seed bead, those seed beads to that crystal. So you want to make sure to sew through that crystal to complete your trip around your piece. And after you're done with this, you can see how tight and nicely this fits in and just has a great feeling. This also would be a fantastic stud earring, or even a drop if you want to add a little wire guard to the top here of the earring. You could add a little crystal below to bling it up. I'm going to show you next how we are going to go in from this point and add on our next blocks of our beads, basically starting over with our next triangle. With my thread coming out of that 2mm bicone here, we are going to add in and start our next triangle. To start the next triangle, coming out of that bicone, I'm going to pick up my next color. So I have that amethyst color, and now I'm going to go with the olivine color. I'm adding 1 of my crystals, then I'm adding my 2 15-0s. Sewing through a pearl, adding 2 15-0s, and adding another 1 of my new crystal color. So you can see that collection. What this is going to do is get that next curve or that point of crystal in there. From here, I'm coming out the top of that purple crystal, I'm going into the bottom, and that is going to be my initial loop around my pearls. From here, I'm going to sew through the bicone, down through the beads, and exit through the pearl. Now guess what? We're just starting over. 15-0 on, pearl on, 15-0 on, pearl on, 15-0, and back through. That now is my starting triangle, and I'm ready to start my loops. Loop number 1 is already made because it's connected there. So I'm sewing over to the next, through the next 15O and the next purl, giving a tight little tug and getting ready to do my next loop. 2 15s, 1, 2, 3 bicones, 2 15s, back into the purl. So it really does loop around that it's the exact same pattern now over and over and over again. So if you need help going back through, adding another loop around, then your second loop, connecting it, go back in the video to one of the previous time slots here and look at how to do those steps again. I'm going to continue adding on in some of my gem colors. Like I said earlier, you could do it in 8Os. It makes also a great necklace because it just has a nice little flow with that Bermuda triangle look, that it's the never-ending triangles, but also in a darker green. It is a great St. Patty's Day idea. Once you finish up with your triangles, and I have here 9 triangles for my wrist, you might need 10 if you have a little bit bigger wrist. And what I'm going to do is create the connection with the clasp. You can see I used a wire guard here with my Potomac's Rivoli clasp, and this is for a 10mm Rivoli. And I'm going to attach my thread to, or my needle to my thread at the other end, taking off my stop bead, and I'm going to sew through to that center crystal. On the other side, we were already at the center crystal, getting ready as if we were going to connect another triangle, and that's where I did the clasp. I did go ahead with my wire guard and take my pliers here, put it into the clasp section, so into the tongue, into the clasp section here, and then what I'm going to do is pinch that closed a tiny little bit. So I'm going to go in here and go 1, 2, 3, pinch that closed. Once that is closed, then I'm going to go with my thread here and add 1, 2, 3 15Os. So into my wire guard, through the wire guard, which ultimately then will take me through the clasp, go back through the wire guard on the other side, and then bring that down towards the piece. Share bead number 3. So you're sewing through bead number 3 one more time, which is going to create a little bit of a triangle. Go figure, all of our triangles here. And then add 2 more 15s, and sew back through that same 2mm crystal that your thread was originally coming out of. I'm going to reinforce this with 2 more passes of thread through the clasp needle wire guard, through the clasp needle wire guard again. Once I'm done that, I'm going to sew into the interior of the pearl here, tie off my thread end after going through a little bit, and burn it down with the thread burner. Glue in my Rivoli, and voila, my Bermuda triangle bracelet is done. It's always nice to see it in different colors and different tones too, with the same kind of almost color pearl. This one has the little silver there. This one was the pretty cream color, and then you can see how they look on the wrist. I also like to show sometimes how they look on the neck as well too, because a lot of these pieces, like I had said previously, and comment below if you switch this up, when you're looking at it, it actually lays really, really nicely because of the flow of it as a necklace. So I hope some people make necklace, and I can't wait to see it hopefully in some golds and blacks and whites as well too. Thanks so much for joining me in creating this Bermuda bracelet. Remember, if you need any of the materials, go ahead and look below the video in the description to get links to shop with us at PotomacBeads.com. You can also subscribe so you don't miss anything from us here at Potomac and any inspiration that may be coming your way. Remember to comment, help out those Potomac beaders that maybe need a little bit more advice, maybe you change up the design, add something else, or even have questions, we'll answer them there. Thanks so much again, happy beading everyone, and stay tuned for the next video.